Thanks to Hollywood's creative bankruptcy, we have, in recent years, been exposed to some very meta storytelling. Meta in the sense that these works are self-referential and play with genre conventions in order to subvert the audience's expectations to varying degrees of success. Meta has almost become a dirty word because of its consumerist connotations. Breaking down the barrier between the art and the spectator automatically makes the spectator aware of their role in consuming the art, which, in some circles, has become a proxy for telling a story that is actually clever or thought-provoking in its own right. And by making the audience aware of their consumption, the art implicitly invites them to consume more, in order to bolster their understanding of the broader media landscape and to reward them for understanding how the dots connect. Meta is at the heart of "I understood that reference" culture. When an artist creates something sincere, they are implicitly pointing at all lesser works and saying, "You could be doing so much better." These projects have value in the audience's eyes and staying power in film culture precisely because they are sincere. Because they get to the point and aren't trying to pull the wool over our eyes or preach a politically or ideologically conscious message under the guise of a story. When an artist creates something meta, however, they are implicitly pointing back at themselves and saying, "Look how clever and self-aware I am. You have to have a high IQ to understand Rick and Morty, etc., etc."
I understood that reference.
I don't mean to say that all meta art is without merit, or that all sincere art is worth the time it takes to consume it. What I'm drawing attention to is the lazy and often clumsy reliance on perceived self-awareness to support stories which would otherwise do fine without it. Instances of irony and fourth wall breaking used not to good effect, but to undermine the exact moments in a story a writer should want to be impactful and memorable. It's a line many modern writers simply refuse to walk as they hopscotch back and forth between taking things seriously and laughing in the face of anyone who takes things seriously. Thankfully, American fiction is not content in simply bombarding us with references and snark and then leaving us to dig for substance among the debris. It has a story of its own to tell. A few stories, technically, all intertwined around the character of Monk, an uptight lecturer who really wishes he could be a writer. In an artistic climate filled with people he considers lazy, uninspired, pandering hacks, he endeavors to write a book so outrageously racist and shallow that the system at large would have no choice but to condemn it, revealing their own double standards. He intended his book, My Pathology, as an insult to a culture of pseudo-creatives for whom he felt a deep-seated sense of contempt. The result was that they loved it. And they also loved the fact that it was written by an ex-con, his secret alias of course. And they loved it even more when he refused to have the book published unless the title was changed to
Fuck. I want to call it Fuck.
A few moments later.
And it's called Cover Your Kids' Eyes and Ears.
Lately, my ability to sniff out good and bad movies just by watching their trailers has been pretty reliable. This is not so much a measure of my powers of deduction as it is my familiarity with the medium. And so, I could relate when Monk dismissed Sintara's book as pandering after hearing a single brief excerpt. The thing is, later in the movie he confronts Sintara about the substance of her book and is forced to admit that he still hasn't read it. Now, I'm not afraid to give my opinion on things I have yet to read or watch or listen to, but confronting an author in order to draw parallels between my insincere work and their sincere work, even though I still haven't read it, is an act of hubris I hope I never commit.
I have written 3 novels since the last time you published.
This is true, and the speed with which you write only proves that good things take time.
And the speed with which Monk condemns only proves that intelligence is no substitute for wisdom. One of Monk's many mistakes was thinking that low-quality art is a new thing. And while there are absolutely alarming trends among trashy art nowadays, which I doubt anyone could have predicted, the fact that it is trashy does not preclude it from finding an audience, and even critical acclaim. Marketing, politics, emotional appeal, and what is fashionable at the time of release do, regrettably, play more of a role in art's popularity than its own measurable qualities. This is why criticism and debate of art is so important. Remember, The Shining was nominated for 2 Razzies back in 1980, and some people still think that Titanic is a good movie. However they were perceived at the time of their releases, the conversation has evolved, and their merits and flaws have had more time to shine and fester respectively.
And nobody in Hollywood reads. They get their assistants to read things and then summarize them. The whole town runs on book reports.
American Fiction is a film about criticism, a slice of life of a frustrated writer who seeks to lash out at a creative industry which he finds lacking, a premise I have no problem getting on board with.
I would read all the manuscripts in the slush pile and send them up the ladder if they were any good. Some of them were great. Most were not.
This is a rare instance of a sincere meta story. I feel like the last one of those I watched was Tropic Thunder, and while it was funny, it wasn't as cutting as American Fiction is.
Yeah, the kind of book critics call important and necessary, but not well written.
Exactly.
To my genuine surprise, this film does not suffer from irony poisoning. It is a very meta movie, well aware of the cultural climate in which it exists and uses that to its benefit while telling a grounded human story. Said story doesn't properly resolve by the time the credits roll, but the film knows that and isn't ashamed of it.
I don't want him to make some grandiose speech spoon-feeding everyone the moral of the story. There is no moral. That's the idea. I like the ambiguity.
With wit and charm, American Fiction uses the medium of books to hold up a mirror to modern Hollywood storytelling standards, and clearly has fun doing it. I remember enjoying Don't Look Up when that came out many moons ago, but I can't get over the distinct feeling of pessimism it inspires. It's good satire and ended on a darkly wholesome note, but just fell short of the modest and lighthearted atmosphere American Fiction maintains throughout.
Novels aren't movies, okay? Nuance doesn't put asses in theater seats. We need a big finish.
And I'm glad to say that none of the film's characters, besides maybe the director, feel flat or caricatured. They all fulfill unique roles in the narrative and feel like they inhabit a believable world. This is especially true for Centaura Golden, a character we're led to believe is part of the problem, as Monk sees it, only for her to prove how self-assured and authentic she is in that pivotal third-act conversation. One which shifts the entire film's paradigm to something unexpected but still highly satisfying.
To be honest, I haven't read your book. I've read excerpts, and it didn't seem so dissimilar.
Keep in mind, Monk wrote his book in retaliation to what he thought Centaura's book was. He wrote that gag book as a reaction to how mainstream feedback to Centaura's book made him feel. He didn't do the bare minimum of actually reading her book before making up his mind that it was trash, in the same way many viewers likely did after experiencing her reading from his point of view. But it doesn't take long to realize that Monk and Centaura have far more in common than her introduction led us to believe. They agree about being able to assess a book's general quality within 100 pages, about using the literary award to give up-and-coming writers a shot at a career in the industry, and about the soullessness of fuck. Their opinions largely align, and yet, seeing things from Monk's tight-ass perspective gives us the impression that Centaura is just that vapid. But whereas she actually did research and first-hand interviews with real people to write her pandering slop, Wheeze Lives in the Ghetto, Monk simply felt himself above it all and was genuinely surprised when Centaura pushed back on him. This whole time he believed himself to be an intellectual, a literary connoisseur. He believed himself superior. It's only through his interactions with the people around him that he was able to find any grounding.
It's all just a part of your superiority complex anyway. Oh! Fucking asshole!
White people read your book and confine us to it. They think that we're all like that.
Then it sounds like your issue is with white people, Monk, not me.
In the blink of an eye, Centaura managed to reframe Monk's core issue as white people's bigotry of low expectations and their warped idea of the black experience. And she's spot on. She may be peddling lowest common denominator tripe that caters to people's misguided racial perceptions, but firstly, Monk doesn't know that for sure, he hasn't read her book, and secondly, she's doing good business. The only reason there is a market for the type of race-baiting, schlocky stories Monk believes Centaura's book is because of the cloistered, affluent, liberal white people Monk actually has a problem with.
Well, maybe, but I also think that I see the unrealized potential of black people in this country.
Potential is what people see when they think what's in front of them isn't good enough.
And then another judge interrupts their dialogue, cutting it short of a definitive resolution. But we never needed one. This is not only a film about criticism, it's a film about discussion of criticism. The literary awards didn't need to serve as the film's thematic climax because that already happened, in Monk's conversation with Centaura. Monk, as a character, is the perfect vehicle for the film's message. He is unhappy with the current trend of racialized, pandering art and goes on a crusade to mock and belittle it, only to find overwhelming critical success. He started out writing a book called My Pathology, but when he got positive feedback on it, doubled down on making it as crass and offensive as possible, leading to an award win. This was an especially compelling dilemma for Monk because, for all his pride, he still needed the money the book brought in to pay for his mother's healthcare following her rapid cognitive decline. It's a tale of integrity versus necessity, principle versus pragmatism. The conflict clearly weighs on Monk as his secret identity drives a wedge in his burgeoning romance and leads him to question the very ideals that made him a writer in the first place.
What's this?
Are you ready?
Of course not. Have you?
Yeah.
And what'd you think of it?
I liked it.
What did you like about it?
If you're frustrated with the way things are right now, consider how much power you actually have over the world around you, and be grateful for all the small things while you still can. We have no idea what the future holds for us, good or bad. All that we can control is our perception of it. And if you're ever at a loss for how to end your story, just make it an explosive racially charged clusterfuck. Someone out there will appreciate it. American fiction forgoes offering a clear and concise message it wants us to take home, and instead opens the door for us to think for ourselves about what we value in art and why. This is why the movie's narrative peak is not a speech, but a debate. One which, in lieu of a concrete resolution, reminds us that we're here to have fun.
Look, criminal or not, I don't think we should add it. We're already weeks into the process, and I don't know about any of you, but I've got more than a dozen books I haven't even opened yet.
I think it's fuck for me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I agree.
I disagree. I'm sorry.
I think it would be a mistake to award this book anything.
You know, it's not just that it's so affecting. I just think it's essential to listen to Black voices right now.